Hey guys, what's going on? My name is PK and welcome to my latest video. As most of you know, I've just come back from Japan, which was a fantastic holiday and I recommend everyone do it just once. It's a beautiful country, fantastic scenery, and really cool if you're a giant nerd like me. This video is a little different. It's a sort of like a haul video for the things that I bought in Japan, and also just like a little brief sort of summary of Japan and why you should go there, because I recommend you should definitely go there. If you're not a gamer, if you're into photography, if you're cool for culture, it's amazing. It's a beautiful country and I recommend everyone go to it at least once. So as you can see, I've bought a heap of video games because I'm a fat nerd and that's what I do. So I thought I would just go through, talk about each game and talk about sort of the differences between PAL and NTSC-J, which are obviously Australian and Japanese settings. So I think from the start we'll just talk about the first game that I've got here, which is Clock Tower 2. So Clock Tower 2 is a survival horror game for the PlayStation 1. Very similar to games like Silent Hill and the original Resident Evil. Takes place where you are alone in a building trying to escape an enemy, just like every other survival game. But instead of having a weapon, you're alone, you're by yourself, you have no way to defend yourself. And it's a very sort of isolating game. Obviously you've got other characters that you interact with, but it's more just you versus the world, or the enemy that you're going up against. I also bought Clock Tower 3, which is sitting behind us, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But if you're into something very akin to classic horror, not so much the new shoot 'em up violent gore horror, but the psychological, sort of Slender-esque horror, I definitely recommend the Clock Tower series, because the enemy's there, you don't know when it's coming, and but if you're really into sort of that classic horror aspect game, I definitely recommend checking out the Clock Tower series. Unfortunately, it has died down over the years, and is nowhere near as popular as it used to be, but I definitely recommend checking out Clock Tower 2. For those of you that are interested, the original Clock Tower is on the Super Nintendo. It cost you about $40. It's rather sought after. Clock Tower 2 is on the PlayStation 1, and Clock Tower 3 is on the PlayStation 2. There are other spin-off games, but I'd recommend sticking to just the core series because they're where the system and the games really shine. Next up we've got Kirby 64, Kirby and the Crystal Shards. For those of you who don't know, Kirby and the Crystal Shards is actually one of the more expensive games for the N64, coming out to about $150, depending on where you're going to get it. If you look on some of the really good marketplaces, you can probably get it for a lot cheaper. But typically I found it for about $150. I paid $10 for my copy, which is fantastic. The game is fantastic. Actually got one of the scariest hidden bosses in gaming history, in my opinion, in it. So if you're looking for something really fun that's really simple and ends up scaring the shit out of you, I'd recommend Kirby and the Crystal Shards. Just sticking with the Nintendo franchise, as you can see in the back corner, I actually bought a Nintendo 64 from Japan and Snowboard Kids 2. For those of you who don't know, Snowboard Kids 2 is arguably one of the most expensive N64 games. Coming in between $200 and $280 for a cartridge. Obviously, once again, going on the marketplaces, you can get it for about $180. I paid $20, so automatically you're looking pretty good. The console, which came with a limited edition, this is the Mario Kart 64 dual color controller, came with the console and an AC adapter that I blew up. As soon as I bought it home, I plugged it in. Fucking blew up. When they say don't plug it into Australian sockets, don't plug it into Australian sockets. Get a power converter. Thankfully, you can plug in any AC adapter and that works. I think we'll continue along. So as you can see, Clock Tower 3, go with Clock Tower 2. Just another really good entry into the survival horror franchise. Once again, just fantastic to play. I'd recommend it. Really sort of dark environments. Not sort of horror as in bleak, violent, blood and gore horror, but a lot of isolation, solitude, really fun. As most of you know, I'm a pretty big weeb, so I picked up a copy of Bleach. It's a Bleach fighting game for the PS2. It's fantastic. For a fighting game, for Bleach, for those of you who know, they released one for the PS3 and it was garbage. There was no multiplayer aspect, it was all linear combat. It wasn't that fun. This is just a flat out brawler. It's what everyone wanted. It's very akin to the Ultimate Ninja series for Xbox 360, PS3. Fantastic. Check it out. Do it. Next, in the back corner, this is a copy of Fire Emblem. So Fire Emblem, obviously everyone knows about the series. It's been on every Nintendo system for a long time, going from the Famicom all the way up to the Wii U, going all the way up to the Wii. Fantastic series. It's a real-time strategy, take your turns, kill your enemies sort of game. It's fantastic. And it's a lot of story-driven elements, so you really get to feel about the characters. There's a lot of energy put into actually developing the characters and their backstories. So if you're interested in something that's a little bit more than just take your turn, kill the enemy, move on, I definitely recommend the original Fire Emblems. If you don't want to go out and buy yourself a Super Famicom or a Super Nintendo in this game, I definitely recommend getting the Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon game for the DS. It's the same game, just with higher graphics, a few new characters and hidden cutscenes, and it's really fantastic, but it's very much the same game with the same backstory. So if you're interested in that, I definitely recommend checking that out. That copy cost me $35. You can obviously get it on the DS for about the same price. It is rather sought after and it can be hard to find. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily a high point in the Fire Emblem series. If you're looking for a really, really good Fire Emblem game, I definitely recommend emulating the original ones on the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance. That's where that system really shines. Or even the new ones on the 3DS. The games are fantastic, characters are really in-depth, and they have a lot more elements based on the combat. Very back corner, not sure if you can know what that is. That is Castlevania Rondo of Blood for the PC Engine. That was a bitch to find. Coming across Dracula X, that's what it's referred to as, was fantastic. And I recommend playing it. It is arguably one of the hardest to find Castlevania games compared to something like Vampire Killer, which goes for about $1,000 for the Mega Drive. So getting Dracula X is fantastic. I'd recommend playing it, picking it up. Obviously you'd have to find a PC Engine and they'll cost you about $200 Australian. So it's worth it. I definitely recommend picking it up. Now, anyone else is a big collector, you know what Rule of Rose is. Rule of Rose is seen as the most expensive PlayStation 2 game for PAL systems. Coming in between $200 and $300, like boxed and clean, and you can spend a lot more on that because people know this game's expensive and people want it. One, just for collection. Two, because it's a really interesting game. It's another survival horror game. As you can see, there's sort of a running trend with the games here. But yeah, it's a really, really weird psychological horror game, and thankfully with this copy, it is NTSC-J, so it is Japanese region locked, but all of the cutscenes, all of the voice acting, and all of the menus are in English, so you can read them and it is pretty easy to navigate. Unfortunately, the only thing that is in Japanese is the item pickup and subtitles, but once again, it's all in English, so you can read it. Alright, up next we have Custom Robo Arena version 2 for the Nintendo 64. This game is fantastic. It is a build your own robot, fight through the storyline, beat the final enemy, get the best gear, play as the best robot sort of game. So you start off as a generic character, boy, girl, with a robot that you get to name and create. And as you go on, as you play through the story, you unlock more parts, unlock new weapons, and unlock more story for the character. So you get to build the character as you want and build the robot as you want. It's really, really cool in-depth combat, 3D graphics that allow you to sort of really take advantage of the combat, which is free-flowing. You get to run around, you get to use hidden weapons, you get to use secret weapons, and it's just a really, really fun game to play. I definitely recommend checking it out. I got my boxed copy for $35 Australian. You could probably get just the cartridge for less than that, obviously about 20 bucks. And for something that really wasn't released here in Australia, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's fantastic. Alrighty guys, up next we have Star Fox for the Super Nintendo. This is where the franchise took off, started from, and it really sort of kicked the Super Nintendo in the arse and gave it some guts. These games came with polygonal graphics, which is really different for the classic Super Nintendo games. These allowed for higher graphics. Unfortunately, there's also enabled slower gameplay. A lot of lag came through because the console was really struggling to deal with polygonal graphics instead of the classic 2D side-scroller or 2D actions or parallax scrolling. So this game is classic, super easy to play. If you're interested, I definitely recommend picking up the Nintendo 64 version. Obviously, it's just a better version of the game. It does come with better graphics, obviously. But yeah, if you want to know where the series started, find out where Fox and Slippy and Pappy and Falco came from, and to remember them, definitely check it out. It's just a cool story and you'll learn a bit about the characters. Funnily enough, it also has one of the best hidden bosses in the game. If you want to find out what that is, I'd either recommend playing it, because it's a fantastic game, or just checking out any footage on YouTube. It's a really, really cool hidden boss and easily one of the hardest ever made. Alrighty guys, up next we have Mother 2 for the Super Nintendo. So this game wasn't really released outside of Japan. It took a long time for us to get a port, but yeah, it's a fantastic game. It's a classic JRPG style, takes turn-based combat to a whole new level, and it's something that's really been and developed a cult following in the last couple of years, with characters like Lucas and Ness appearing in games like Super Smash Bros. You play as 4 kids, with one mainly being Ness, who has psychokinetic powers, so powers of elements that he can generate himself, and you just use those powers to defeat evil and move on through the game. So super classic. If you're interested in games like Final Fantasy or in Fire Emblem, it's akin to those sort of games, or any sort of Japanese RPG, which is fantastic. I picked up my copy for about $35. That's roughly what you'd be paying elsewhere if you're looking at getting it on another console, which it was released on the Game Boy Advance. Cost you about the same. Up next we've got the Tactics series, so Tactics Ogre and Ogre Battle. These are the original Final Fantasy Tactics games for the Super Nintendo. Really hard, really cool games that came with a lot of cool elements. So if you're a fan of sort of turn-based strategy, sort of things like Fire Emblem again, or even games like StarCraft where they sort of draw a little bit of elements from, it's a fantastic game. I bought both my copies for $10 and $15 respectively, and they're just really cool. You sort of generate your units, have them go out, you can control them adequately, but it's more about being able to send out the right units at the right time to sort of take advantage of the battlefield when you can. Then we've got another big gem. We've got Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars. This game really innovated. It was before Paper Mario, so this is the original Paper Mario game, which is fantastic. You go around, you meet characters, you really get to discover other characters in the Mushroom Kingdom, like Peach and Bowser, and what they're like when Peach isn't being fucking kidnapped and Bowser isn't being really pervy. And it's a really cool opening concept to these sort of characters and gives them a bit of a backstory. Then you got Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is another one of those huge JRPG fantasy lines that, you know, has continued to this day. Play as Chrono, you have power over time, but it's played out as a JRPG turn-based strategy game. Fantastic. Then you got Mega Man and Bass. Mega Man and Bass is a really fantastic Mega Man game. Came out between, I think it's 7 and 8. Yes, 7 and 8. But you play as both Mega Man and Bass. Bass was a villain in Mega Man 7, and you get to actually explore him and learn his character. It's really cool. I will say, Mega Man is seen as the hard mode of that game, so be ready for that. I definitely recommend just playing into that game, play as Bass. Bass has multi-directional shooting, and it's cheap. Like, it cost me $50 Australian to pick it up. To purchase a copy will cost you roughly the same. It's not too bad, but it's just harder to come by, and a lot of the copies will actually be reproduction cartridges instead of just flat-out copies. Then we're moving on to Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I love the Castlevania series. I gush for the Castlevania series. This cost me $35 in Japan, obviously 35 Australian, retailing for about $250 for a fresh copy. The classics, or the classics, will cost you about $170, but it's a fantastic game. If you haven't played it, haven't emulated it, it is on the Xbox 360. I'm also sure it's on the PS4. You can play it, but I like to have the physicals. It's a fantastic game. Really gave Castlevania the kick that it really needed, and brought it back into the limelight. There are a lot of really good PS2 Castlevania. There are a lot of really good Castlevania games for the PS2. I'd also recommend checking them out. And a lot of the originals were remade on things like the DS. Alrighty, so up next we have PS2. So obviously you've got PS2 games. You need the PS2 to play the games. PS2 cost me roughly $70, which is very steep. Just in terms of Japan, PS2s are very rare, or rarer than they are here in Australia. So typically what would cost you $35 Australian at a second-hand shop will cost you $70 to $80. So just be aware of that. I was really caught by surprise by that sort of stuff. I'm sure other people will be. Of course, I went to places like Super Potato, which I will recommend highly. Actually, 75% of this, or more, was actually bought at Super Potatoes. So if you're looking to buy games, definitely check them out. But yeah, PS2s are very expensive. Even the base models, these aren't chipped, these are region locked. So you're still going to need a power adapter, which you can get at places like JCar. Most tech shops will sell some sort of power converter. not just a power plug converter, but a full power converter from 240 watts to 110, which is what the Japanese console run at. Yeah, so it came with custom controller, cool neon blue, I really like it. Alrighty, so up next, during my adventures in Japan, my girlfriend and I stumbled across Fushimi Inari Shrine, and during that there was a huge festival going on for like the monks that prayed there. And if anyone knows anything about Fushimi Inari Shrine, there are 1,000 red wooden like walkways through there, and you walk under them, and they're huge sort of doorways. But yeah, so we're at the festival and it was cool. We just ate and drank and had a good time, and we walked up the mountain and it was fantastic. And after that we did a heap of shopping, and I bought this cool ass piece of shit. Just a cool Oni mask, nothing crazy. I just thought it was really cool and cost me a shit ton of cash, and I was pretty happy with that. Alrighty, and finally, the thing that I lugged around all of Japan. First day I was there, my girlfriend and I landed in Tokyo. And we spent one day in Tokyo before heading off to Kyoto. And I went to a retro game shop that I found. And I found this. For those of you who don't know, I'm a massive weeb. I love anime, I love manga, it's fantastic. One thing that my squad and I watch is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So this is the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle Limited Edition box. Yeah, it's really, really cool. It comes with a figurine of one of the Joestars. Fuck. Hey Ella!
What?
Which one's this JoJo? This is Jotaro.
Josuke.
Josuke, that's right.
Josuke.
Josuke.
Yeah.
Riske.
Like Sasuke, but with JoJo on it.
Oh, fucking gay then. Okay, so I gotta restart that bit. Okay. So it comes with a figure of Josuke Joestar, who is the star of season 3. And it comes with a cool disc, it comes with soundtracks. Fucking awesome. Yeah. And I think we will now cut to a hard unboxing of this bad boy.